At some point, you lost one. Maybe it was this morning, maybe it was months ago. You found it at the surface, or wedged behind a filter, or lying still on the substrate while the others moved around it. You took it out. You went on with your day. But the others didn't. What happened in your tank in the hours after that fish disappeared is something most owners never see, never look for, and never get told about. And what the science says about why it happened will change the way you look at every fish in that water. Welcome to Aquarium Fish Mind. Subscribe before you leave, because what you're about to learn about the fish you thought were replaceable will make that word impossible to use again. Today, we're going through what actually happens to a neon tetra school when one of their own dies. What they do, what they feel, and why the fish most people treat as decoration are running a social system far more complex than anyone told you. Stay until the end, because the final thing we cover is the one that explains why losing a fish, even a small one, even a cheap one, felt like more than it was supposed to. 6 things happen in your tank after a fish dies. Number 4 is something that was documented by accident and changed how researchers think about fish social bonds. Number 6 is the one that changes everything. Let's go. Number 1. The school tightens immediately, and it stays tight for longer than you think. Neon tetras are shoaling fish. Under normal conditions, a healthy school has a loose, fluid structure. Fish spread across the tank, some near the surface, some mid-water moving in and out of formation naturally. That structure has a rhythm to it. You know what your school looks like when everything is fine? When a member dies, that rhythm breaks. Within minutes of a death, or in many cases, within minutes of the dying fish beginning to show signs of distress, the remaining school pulls together. The loose formation compresses. Fish that were spread across the tank converge. The group becomes denser, tighter, more coordinated than it is under normal conditions. Researchers studying shoaling behavior in small tetras at the University of Leeds documented this compression response and found it is not random. It is a direct reaction to a threat signal in the social group. A fish that is dying produces chemical signals, alarm substances released through damaged skin cells called chondrocytes, that the surrounding fish detect through their lateral line and olfactory systems. The school is not mourning, not yet. It is responding to a chemical alarm that says something is wrong with one of us. And the response, pulling together, compressing, increasing group vigilance, is the same response the school would produce if a predator had just taken a member. To the school, a dying fish and a predator attack produce the same signal. The loss registers as a threat. Number 2. They go to the body. And what they do when they get there is not what you expect. This is the behavior most owners notice and don't know how to interpret. After the initial compression, individual fish from the school will approach the body of the dead or dying fish. They circle it. Some make brief contact, a nudge, a pass close enough to touch. Then they return to the group. Most people assume this is opportunistic feeding behavior. It is not, or at least, it is not only that. Research into fish investigation of dead conspecifics, members of their own species, has found that this behavior contains a social assessment component that goes beyond feeding interest. Fish approach dead members and engage in what researchers call contact investigation, a behavior that is distinct from feeding approaches in its speed, its repetition pattern, and the fact that it occurs even when the fish show no subsequent feeding interest in the body. What they appear to be doing is confirming processing, running a check against the individual they knew as a member of the group, and registering that the individual is no longer responsive in the way a living member would be. Whether this constitutes anything like awareness of death in the way we experience it is a question the science has not fully answered. What the science has answered is that this behavior is deliberate. It is socially specific, and it is different from every other behavior the fish produces around food. They know something has changed. They go to find out what. Number 3, the social structure of your entire tank reorganizes within hours. A neon tetra school is not a flat, equal group. It has internal hierarchy, dominant individuals who lead directional changes, subordinates who follow, fish who occupy specific positions within the formation consistently. That hierarchy is invisible to most owners, but it is running constantly beneath the surface of what looks like simple schooling behavior. When a member dies, particularly a dominant or central member, the hierarchy destabilizes. Researchers studying social dynamics in small shoaling fish have documented what they call post-loss reorganization, a period following the death of a group member during which the remaining fish spend significantly more time in social signaling behaviors, chasing, brief displays, position testing within the formation. Behaviors that in a stable group are rare or absent become frequent. The school is not fighting, it is recalibrating. Every remaining fish's position in the hierarchy relative to every other fish has shifted. Because one node in the social network is gone, the group has to relearn itself. This process takes time. In documented observations, anywhere from several hours to several days, depending on the size of the group and the social significance of the fish that was lost. During this period, the school is more reactive, more compressed, more sensitive to stimuli than it would normally be. Your tank after a death is not back to normal the next morning. It is running a social recalibration that most owners never see because they are not looking for it. Number 4 is the one researchers found by accident. It involves something the school does in the days after the loss that nobody predicted. Stay with me. Number 4. The school changes how it moves, and it stays changed. This is the one that came out of research nobody designed to find it. In a long-term study of shoaling fish social behavior, researchers tracking movement patterns in Tetra groups noticed something in the data following natural deaths within the study population. The school's movement patterns, its turning speed, its cohesion distance, the frequency with which individual fish broke from the group shifted measurably after a member died. And those shifts persisted for days beyond the acute stress response. The school was moving differently, not just tighter, not just more vigilant. The actual coordination pattern between individual fish had changed. The researchers described it as a recalibration of collective movement, the school learning, in a measurable behavioral sense, to move as a group of 7 instead of a group of 8. What this implies is something significant. The school was not simply responding to the absence of a threat signal. It was adjusting its collective behavior to account for a missing member, which means each individual fish had, in some functional sense, a representation of the group that included that specific fish. And when that fish was gone, the representation had to update. The fish you lost was not interchangeable to the school it left behind. It had a place in the group's model of itself. And when it was gone, the model had to change. Number 5. There is a measurable stress response in the surviving fish, and it lasts. The alarm substance released by a dying fish, the chemical signal we covered in section 1, does more than trigger immediate compression behavior. It produces a lasting physiological stress response in the fish that detect it. Research measuring cortisol levels in fish exposed to alarm substances from dying conspecifics found elevated stress hormone levels persisting for hours after the initial exposure. The acute behavioral response, compression, investigation, fades relatively quickly. The physiological response does not. The surviving fish are running elevated stress chemistry in the hours and days after a loss. Their immune function is slightly suppressed. Their appetite may decrease. Their reactivity to environmental stimuli is heightened. These are not behavioral choices. They are measurable biological responses to a social event. In practical terms, this means the fish in your tank after a death are not fine the next day, even if they look fine. They are processing a physiological stress response that runs beneath every behavior you can observe. The school that looks normal at the surface is running a stress chemistry underneath it that tells a different story. This is also why deaths cluster. One sick fish releases alarm substances. The school responds with elevated stress chemistry. Elevated stress suppresses immunity, and fish whose immunity is suppressed become more vulnerable to the same pathogen that took the first fish. The school's grief response, in a very direct biological sense, puts the remaining fish at risk. Number 6. What happens the moment you reach into the tank? You've seen this, and you've misread it. When you put your hand into the tank to remove the body, the school scatters. They press to the far corners, go still behind plants, hold their position until your hand is gone. Most owners assume this is standard fear of a hand in the tank. It is not the same behavior. Research comparing fish responses to hand entry under normal conditions versus hand entry immediately following a death in the group found a significantly elevated fear response in the post-death scenario. More fish fled. Flee distances were longer. Return to normal positioning. after hand removal took significantly more time. The school in the aftermath of a death is in a heightened threat state. Its alarm systems are already running. The detection threshold for a new threat, including your hand, is lower than it would normally be. What looks like ordinary hand shyness is actually a school in a state of acute social stress, responding to what it reads as a second threat arriving immediately after the first, and then you take the body out. And the school has no body to investigate, no chemical trail to follow, no physical evidence of what happened. The loss is simply gone. The investigation behavior stops not because the school has processed the loss, but because the subject of the investigation has been removed. Whether that is better or worse for the school is something the research has not yet answered. What it suggests is that the removal of the body does not end the social process the school has begun. It just removes one of the inputs. I want to talk about something that most fish content will never touch. At some point, you lost a neon tetra and you felt something. Maybe it was small. Maybe you caught yourself feeling it and immediately told yourself it was ridiculous. It was a $2 fish. It was one of 12. They all look the same. You can get another one tomorrow. Maybe someone else told you that. It's just a fish. I want to tell you why that phrase is wrong. Not emotionally wrong, scientifically wrong. The fish you lost was a member of a social group that had a specific, documented, measurable representation of it as an individual. The school knew that fish, not the way you know someone, not with memory and name and history, but in the way that mattered to the school's survival. It knew the fish's position in the hierarchy. It knew its chemical signature. It knew how the group moved when that fish was in it, and when it was gone, the group changed. Measurably, persistently, in ways that lasted days. The fish you lost was not replaceable to the school it left. A new fish added to the tank is not a restoration of what was there. It is a new individual that the school will have to assess, incorporate, and find a place for. The hierarchy will reorganize again. The movement patterns will recalibrate again. The group that existed before the loss does not come back when you add a new fish. A new group forms. I am not going to tell you that your neon tetra had a rich inner life, or that it knew you, or that it suffered in the way you would suffer. The science does not support those claims, and I will not make them carelessly. But I will tell you this. The system that fish exist inside, the social network, the chemical communication, the collective movement, the alarm responses, the stress chemistry is real. It is complex. And it is sensitive to loss in ways that the phrase, "it's just a fish," has never accounted for. You were right to feel something, the tank felt it too. Before you go, I want to ask you something and I want you to take a moment with it before you answer. Have you ever lost a fish and noticed the others behaving differently afterward? A school that stayed tight for days. A fish that kept going back to the same spot. A tank that felt quieter than it should have. Tell me what species. Tell me what you saw. Tell me how long it lasted. I read every single one. Thank you for being here at Aquarium Fish Mind. I'll see you in the next one.